Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Last time that we reviewed a Asiga product, it was SuperCAST S. Today we're looking at the predecessor to S called SuperCAST X. SuperCAST X has been around for quite a while actually, and according to Asiga's website is, quote, the ultimate jewelry casting resin offering reliable casting results under many different burnout strategies. Sounds pretty concise, pretty clear. So based off that, we're hoping that this resin is going to perform really well, really easily. So let's start off with the print quality. As expected, printing on a DLP machine that this material was specifically designed for, the print quality is absolutely phenomenal. I don't think that the camera does these prints much justice. It's really hard to describe perfection. Like there's just nothing to note. Everything's perfect, but at the same time, like there's just nothing to take away from the model itself. This is basically the same as what SuperCAST S was able to provide, albeit in a different color, a much more eye-friendly color, by the way. SuperCAST S was like a Barbie pink. This one is a pale green. Now it actually doesn't start off as this color. When you pour it into the tank, the resin is itself a transparent green color, which my first impression was alarm bells, honestly, because we've run this course before with transparent green resins, something along the lines of casting dental. Maybe you've seen that available on virtually every cheap resin brand ever. That material is very difficult to work with. It's not really jewelry friendly. Dental casting is an entirely different procedure with much higher temperatures, different investments. Overall, it's much more expensive to get into. So I guess the resin is cheap, but everything else is expensive. Jewelry resins are expensive, but everything else can be cheaper. Tends to be the way things go. Anyway, that alarm was pretty short-lived because much like the SuperCAST S, which, after it goes in transparent, when it prints, it turns an opaque color. And as you cure it for a considerable amount of time, we'll talk about that in a second, the raw print green is actually much darker than these prints. You can see a little bit here in the back of the skull where I wasn't able to get proper UV curing just because this model is kind of like a shroud. It gets a lot paler the more it's cured, which is actually really nice. It's something I'd like to see on more resins, is a color change indicator to basically say when you've reached this certain color, you know it is cured, rather than just kind of like printing, washing, and put it in for 20 minutes. I don't know if it's done or not. There's no indicator to help you. So it's really nice to see with a resin like this, whether that was intended or not. Now back to that post-curing thing. Much like SuperCAST S, I got hung up on the post-curing because the user guide from Asiga specifies the use of a very high-end, very specific post-curing machine, which prior to working with these materials, I had never even heard of. That machine is called the AutoFlash G171, and this post-curing machine is designed very differently from virtually every other post-curing machine that you'll find on the market. This machine uses a bulb and it strobes or flashes the prints at like 10 flashes a second with an incredibly high light intensity. The user guide indicates that you should cure both sides of the print for 2,000 flashes, which is great, but I don't have an auto flash and I don't know how to equate that to a more typical consumer post-curing unit, much like my Prusa CW1 or even the little cure unit that comes with the Asiga. The CW1 uses 405 nanometer UV LEDs, whereas this was printed with 385 nanometer. Now on the bottle it specifically says 385 and 405, so there was really no question that the post-curing wasn't going to work. It was literally just a matter of time. How long do I cure for? I started off by curing these resins for 1 hour, which really isn't out of the question when you compare it to some of the other resins that we've tried. EasyCast 200 series and 400. Both of those require glycerin and about 45 minutes of post-curing. So I felt like that was a pretty good place to start. After that 1 hour post-curing, we did do a cast, and it was not enough, as it were. The surface texture we had on these prints was noticeable enough that I knew I probably hadn't post-cured well. And the casting was actually surprisingly good. Like, it was acceptable, but I knew that it could be better. So how does SuperCAST X stand up? How well does it cast after we've properly cured it? We used our normal casting procedure, which is to say we used R&R Plasticast at a 40:100 ratio. We used the same kind of water. We use the same temperature, same mixing time, everything's the same. If you want more details about our burnout schedule and our whole process, there will be a link just up here in the corner for you to check out there. The one variability that I wasn't able to match according to the Asiga user guide was R&R UltraVest Max is what they prefer you use. I don't use UltraVest simply because UltraVest is typically formulated for wax casting only. It can't really cope with the thermal expansion that occurs from resins. Now, Max is a little different. I don't know exactly what it is that makes it better or designed for working with resins, but they specifically say on their website that UltraVest Max mitigates, quote, the orange peel effect associated with metal mold reactions and flashing and spalling effects associated with investment breakdown during burnout from resin pattern removal, which is exactly the issue that we had. Taking into consideration this discrepancy from the guide, the casting results were actually quite good. But you can see here, there's that little bit of, as R&R described in that Max description, the orange peel effect that happens when the resin isn't quite cured enough and it reacts with that investment. We had this pretty much all the way around, and it's consistent with all of these castings. So again, like, these are really good casts, but they're just not quite perfect enough for me. So this is what prompted us to start again. So this was with 1 hour curing. And then we moved on to 2 hour cure, exactly the same casting procedure, and we had a much better result. Now, I know that these casts are actually still really dirty. I had some problems with my tumbler. The stuff in it is just grimy as heck, and it won't come off. I'm going to probably tumble these again, but we just didn't have time for this video. Either way, I kind of think the grime shows off some of the details, so we're just going to run with it. So 2 hours of curing, exactly the same burnout process, and the results are really, really nice. We don't see any of that orange peel effect. We'll have more direct comparisons in a sec. All the details are there. No problems whatsoever. What I put in is what I got out, and it's just absolutely flawless. Micro pave set ring. This one's a challenge. This is one of the reasons why I use this model in particular, because every single one of these holes, when you think about it in reverse, the investment has to flow through each hole and create a little pillar to maintain that hole integrity. And every single hole, except for these ones here I can't really see, has been perfectly, it's still perfect. There's nothing to report. There's no surface issues down here where we normally see them. Surface texture, all the prongs are there. So overall, like, this is a basically flawless casting. When it comes to the signet ring, we typically see some issues down here on the side of the shank with surface texture issues. And we're not seeing that at all. I do see a slight collapse right here on the corner. Looks kind of chunky. That might have been from some expansion, but it's so small. I'm more inclined to believe that maybe something fell in or whatever. It's very, very fixable though, so this is totally a good cast. Very manageable. No problems on the inside, although my cleaning is lacking, obviously, with the plaster. So overall, very, very good casting with the heavy model. We've got the thin little one here, the engagement ring, exactly as cast. I did try to leave that center sprue just or it's not really a sprue, it's actually a support, but treating it as a sprue, and it seems to work out pretty well. There's absolutely no surface texture issues down here. Even the little stone setting that's under the main setting turned out great. You're supposed to be able to set like a 0.5 millimeter diamond in there or something. Looks really, really nice. And then lastly, we'll talk about the more stone set heavy engagement ring. This one turned out, again, very, very lovely. No surface texture issues after that 2-hour curing. All the prongs are there. Everything is where it belongs. So yeah, great, great castings from SuperCAST X from Asiga. So those results are outstanding, as I was expecting from a product from Asiga. So what are my personal thoughts about Asiga SuperCAST X? For starters, I feel a little bit bad that I wasn't able to follow the instructions perfectly, because Asiga's clearly done their research and they know exactly how to get the best out of their materials. Our situation's definitely a little bit unique. You, the viewer, if you were to pick up this bottle and get an Asiga printer and everything, you're more likely to settle into one resin that you know works really well, that you can print well easily with, you can cast easily, and it's much easier for someone in that situation to set up a solid, repeatable procedure that you can follow time after time and get really good results. The likelihood that you would be getting literally every castable resin that you possibly could is very unlikely. So just for that sole reason that we weren't able to follow the user guide as well as we would have liked, I don't think I'll be buying more of this, but I will certainly enjoy using the rest of the bottle. Now, also given our review so far of SuperCAST S, which actually prints much faster on Asiga printers compared to X, and it also works really well on MSLA printers, I'm more likely to swing towards that particular resin, given that it works so well with our current casting procedure. It was faster, the fidelity was just as good. Yeah, I'm just more likely to swing towards the SuperCAST S than X. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I recommend checking out our SuperCAST S review if you haven't already. Don't forget to like and subscribe because we are midway through our loan period with the Asiga Max X35 3D printer, and we've been slowly putting together a monster of a review with, frankly, too many details. We're probably gonna have to cut that back. You won't want to miss that video because it's very in-depth, it's very interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of information that you simply, if you don't know about these printers, you don't even know what you're missing when you're using some of the less expensive ones. So that's all I have to say for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys are interested in buying some, I'll have the link down below. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.